Title of today's video is Performance Anxiety. I wanted to name it Getting Your Mojo Back in Pattaya, but no one's watched Austin Powers in a long time, so they might have lost the reference. So one of the things that I see a lot, and it's bad because men have a hard time talking about this stuff because it's not, women talk about everything. Matter of fact, too much, they share with their friends. Whereas a man will never go up to another buddy, hey, I'm kind of worried about having sex with a woman. Uh, but it happens to a lot of guys. They come out of a relationship after years and years of marriage. They get divorced. They haven't been active as far as man activities in a long time. And it's some people have. I'm not saying every marriage is the same. Some people have a great sex life, but if they had a great sex life, they probably wouldn't be Pattaya. They'd be at home. So, when you come to Pattaya, there are some things that are you do have to think about, because as men get older, there's things that we never used when we were young and good looking. That's like I told my son. It's like, after my divorce, I was 48 years old. And it's like the last time I dated, I was in my 20s. And I lifted weights all the time. I had like the perfect physique. I was a nice looking man. I could go anywhere and women would be interested in me. And it's like now I kind of look like somebody's dad. And so it's kind of a hard step to take. And then on top of that, when you do come to Pattaya or anywhere in Thailand, the women are so young and so attractive compared to you. So it's a hard thing to kind of get over, get used to, I should say. You have to remember one thing. If you're dating, then you have to take into account the lady's age, because you're entering into a relationship or would-be relationship, and there has to be an equal kind of balance in age, what you have to offer, what she has to offer, things like that. But if you're coming to Thailand just as a celebration of getting a divorce and you're interested in the red light areas, then don't worry. I've never seen a place that men worry so much about impressing women that they ultimately have to pay for. It's like, you don't have to, if you don't open the door for her, you should. Now, I'm not saying that's, not a good idea, but if you forget to open the door for her, don't sweat it. She's not going to worry about it. You're paying her for her time. And that's just the way it is. But there are some things that men never talk about, which they should, okay? As we get older, things change. And it's things that most of us know, but like I said, we never sit around in the gym talking about it. The first is, I always tell people when I'm with a woman for a while, I always say that a male member has a mind of its own, because it's true. There is no rhyme or reason why things work the way they do. I have been with a woman and things have began and ended within minutes. And I have been with a woman and it's like 45 minutes later, it's like I'm thinking, when is this going to end? And so there's a lot of that to where you're not in control of things. So just relax and go with it. The other thing, and this is something I told my sons when they were like ending high school, going to college, and could understand they were dating and getting more of the age to where it'd be pliable. I always told them, it's like, you want to have your manhood basically do what it's supposed to do. Don't think about it. The minute you think about whatever it is that you're thinking about, that's what's going to happen. And whether it's, being up and ready or whatever it happens to be, if you think about it, I don't know, it won't happen. So just relax. The other thing when you find yourself in Pattaya especially, you're going to find that especially if you go to the Beach Road where all the bars are open. You have all of the vendors coming in. Hey, you want to buy cigarettes? Hey, you want to buy a watch? The other popular thing is you want to buy some Viagra or Cialis or whatever. First of all, don't. Especially if you want any kind of pill like that, go to a pharmacist, a reputable business, to where they're going to give you what you're buying. You know, you don't buy something you ingest in your body on the street. Secondly, if you have any kind of heart issues, okay, be really careful. And, you know, because um, red light activities are great, but they're not worth dying for. Some of the other things that people don't talk about, and this is important because I kind of had to learn, I don't want to say on my own, but through women, through relationships that I've had, I've kind of had to learn a lot of these things and just, you know, reading a lot about it. First thing is, when it comes to relations between a man and a woman, everyone thinks about like Viagra. You know, it causes things to happen. Um, but that's only one of the aspects of the whole process. Um, what you think. A lot of times, men go for, if they're married for years and years and years, there are a lot of men who haven't had sexual relations with a woman in 25 years, okay? And in that time, as a way, because I know when I was married for 22 years, and it wasn't always that way. In the beginning, I had nothing to complain about in that department. But as our marriage went on and there were problems and everything else, it ended. And it's like you only go to bed so many times where you start thinking, hey, and then you hear, that's not happening. And it's like, why am I married? But a man will stop tormenting himself because so many men, when they're younger men and they have an opportunity for sexual relations with a woman, they think a lot about women, about, you know, being with women, everything else, and everything pertaining to sexual activity. And that is part of the process. That's also what keeps you so looking for that kind of activity because your mind is always on it. As you're married for a long time, you almost purposely don't think about it or try to because there's nothing more frustrating when you should have the ability to, you know, have those kinds of activities, but it can't. And the reason, you know, I mean, I'm not saying, because I don't mean to be mean here. If somebody has an accident or their health fades to where, you know, a woman can't have sexual activity anymore, the man should, of course, understand. The man should not make a woman feel guilty for that because she has nothing to do with those things. It's just life happened, and that's why they say that's life. But when I have seen older women, you know, they talk to their girlfriends, they listen to a psychiatrist, they, you know, listen to an episode of The View, and all of a sudden they decide that they just don't like sex and they don't want to have it anymore. And it's like, you don't understand. That decision affects two people. And I'm a firm believer in forewarning women as far as kind of deal breakers. And one of my deal breakers in Thailand, at least, is money. I do not give money to women for anything other, you know, I will buy them dinner. I will buy them drinks. I will pay for their taxi. I'm not going to give them money, get their hair done, to, you know, get the vet to come out and look at their sick buffalo, fix their car, fix their mother's car, you know, give them money for their mother being in the hospital, whatever. I don't give money out. And so I make that abundantly clear very early. You know, on the first date, it's not like I'm saying, hey, I don't give money out. But I work into it. I tell a story about a woman who, just any woman, even if I make up the story, it doesn't matter. But a woman who asked me, we hadn't even gone out yet, and she asked me for money. And then that leads into the fact that I don't give money to women. And that way they know. And I not only say I don't give money to women, it's like if a woman asks me, not only do I not give money to her, but I quit seeing her because I'm not going to live with that feeling all the time of when's it coming? When is she going to find another way to try to extract money from me? And that way she knows that if she asks, not only will she not get the money, but we'll quit seeing each other. Because one of the things I've seen and I've said this before in some of the tapes, is that even though Thai women are notorious for asking for money, when you say no, they pout, they get a little upset, but they never quit seeing you. It's like the funniest thing because if I absolutely had to have money and I was desperate and I asked somebody that I was dating for money and they said no, I would at least break up with them, or whatever. It's like if I knew they had the money and could give it to me and they didn't, I get pissed. But they don't. They just they get mad. They call you stingy, and they'll pout a little bit, and then they go right back to finding a new reason to ask you for money. But the same thing. I tell ladies when if a lady has potential to be a relationship and a long-term relationship, I'm very honest, and it's like I'm honest with other people too. There was one lady I was at a get together, and there were a lot of younger ladies there, and all the ladies were kind of sitting together, and they had quite a bit of wine, and the one lady said something about um, oral sex, and there were two ladies were talking about it, and the younger of the two ladies said, "Oh, you don't have to, you forgot. I got married. I don't have to do that anymore." And I looked at her and I said, "It's okay. I'm sure he'll find someone else to do that for him." And I mean, they were just like, "Oh, how could you say that? My husband's not gonna." And it's like, never, just because you decide something doesn't mean you should force that on the other person. If you've done something to keep somebody happy in your marriage or your relationship, why would you take a chance and stop doing that just for whatever reason? So, anyways, that's one of the things is that it's difficult because a lot of men have not been in this relationship. The age is also a difficulty because it is when you're older and you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and the woman is like 25 and she looks like a supermodel. It's very difficult to get around that. It's like at one time I kind of looked like a supermodel too, but that day is long past. Now I look like somebody's dad, and it's the reality of it. So those are some of the things. Now another thing, getting back to Viagra and things like that. One of the things that you do have to remember is as you get older, okay, things do change. And your body kind of has to be reminded of the process it went through when you were young. When I was young, I swear to God, I mean, anything would, and it was almost embarrassing because if a woman gets excited in that way, you can't tell. If a man gets excited in that way and he's young, you can tell. But as you get older, it's not, it does happen, but not with the frequency when you're young. So, don't sweat it. If, you're a healthy man with no problems, you know, normal activities will take care of the problem. But there are some other things that need to be addressed too, because it's not just the problems that Viagra take care of. There's internal problems in your body, and I've read a lot about this. I'm not diagnosing anything. I'm not a doctor. I've just found this has made a difference in me. So take it for what you will. But your body has to, in that process, your body uses nitrous oxide is what causes the stimulation for a man. And that is something I take as a supplement. And it made a huge difference. I've always been I don't know what you want to call it, a hound. I've always been respectful, but it's something that when I'm involved with a lady, it's very important, that aspect of our relationship. And so it's always, taken priority. So as I got older, I wanted to feel like I did when I was young. And so I did a lot of research about it. And testosterone is an important thing. Not ridiculous. And this is something you have to do your own research on or talk to your doctor about, because some guys just go and they start taking fistfuls of this supplement and that supplement. And supplements, even though they are natural in most cases, they can be very almost lethal if you take enough of them. So always talk to a medical professional. The same with before you take any kind of stimulant, as far as like Viagra. Always make sure that it's something that's not going to basically kill you. But the nitrous oxide, it's also you can buy nitrous oxide. It's not expensive at all. You can get it at Walmart, as a matter of fact, in America. There's a product called L-arginine. I think I said that right. Arginine, whatever it is, it's a amino acid, I believe, that also helps the body with that. And I also take that if I'm out of nitrous oxide. Another product I take is maca. Maca helps with testosterone levels and all the manly things. And between the two, it's a very I'm very happy with the effects of it. Let's put it that way. The other thing is, now this is an added thing, not having anything to do with sexual activity, but just general health. I read a book many years ago by two physicians, and it was kind of a goofy title, something like why primates don't have heart attacks and men do, or people do, and it went over the fact that primates are our closest um, genetic uh, animals, and the difference between us. Well, there are many differences between us, but one of the differences between us, there are two vitamins that primates store in their body. Like most vitamins we take, many are stored, and there's a reserve of them for the body to work properly. Vitamin C and vitamin E are two vitamins that most of them, the body uses them as they go through, and then they all leave. And so the doctor's theory was that, being the difference of, the primates have these vitamins available to their body and they nourish the heart, or that's my wording, but and we get rid of them, then they did studies and found that that could be one of the reasons for the high incidence of heart attacks, especially with the poor diets that we have. So I've always taken vitamin C and vitamin E. I take an aspirin as well. So there you go. I'm not promoting any of that. I'm not suggesting any of that. And always talk to a health professional before you do anything. But it does. I never really thought much about this until my last trip to Thailand. And I was busy my last trip to Thailand. I stayed right off Beach Road. Um, I met a lot of ladies that I dated. I went out quite a bit, and there was a lot of, it was a busy time. And this one day, and the lady in the receptionist in the hotel, it was a local hotel, it wasn't, it was nice, but not like the Hilton or anything. Um, and the lady was an older woman, and she was so sweet. She'd always come in, and she always have things to say to me. And because I had people coming up to my room, well, ladies coming up to my room, she would always make little jokes and things. And this one day, I had made plans to meet one of the ladies that I knew for like a late lunch, around 2 or so. And that was fine. I was gonna get up, smoke a cigar, have some coffee, go to the pool, after lunch, take a shower, and then go meet her. One of the ladies that I had seen before calls me first thing in the morning, like, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock, and she said that she was on her scooter and she had to go pee really, really bad, and she just happened to be by my hotel. It's like, uh huh, right. And so she said, "Can I come up and use your restroom?" And it's like, that's fine. So she came up, used my restroom. She stayed for quite a while, if you get my drift. Um, and so, anyways, that was fine. I told her I had many things to do in the afternoon, so she's going to have to leave. So she did. And so I went on my date, and I didn't really think about the activities in the morning, how they might affect my activities in the afternoon. I don't think about such things. Um, so, anyways, I went to my date at 2, and everything worked out very well. And we ended up back at the hotel. And the lady, the receptionist behind the counter, the older woman, she just kind of shook her head and laughed. And I just kind of rolled my eyes and, whatever. I'm in Thailand. And so, anyways, that was fun. So after a while, it's like I told her, I said, I do have to edit some videos and do some things. So I'll talk to you later, but you're gonna have to leave now, and then I'll give you a call tomorrow. And so she left, and I did. I started editing videos and working, doing a little work, and smoking a cigar and having some wine. And I don't know why, I just never got tired. And it got to be 10, 11, 12. And I thought, I'm just not ready to go to bed yet. So I went and I thought, I'll go have a beer. And there was a little bar like right next to the hotel. So I went downstairs, went to the bar. And I was sitting there. I met another lady, and things worked out really well. Went back to the hotel. And so she, stayed for a while and then left. And the next day, and all the time I wasn't thinking about, wow, that's 3 women in one day. I would just, like lucky me is what I was thinking. And it wasn't until the next morning when I went, and the older lady had a younger lady who was like her assistant who helped her. And so they were both there all the time basically. And I went down and I think I got a bottle of water because they had a little store next to the reception area. And the older woman was like, wow, 3 women in one day. And it's like, oh, yesterday. It's like, yeah, yeah, it was a fun day. The older woman looked at me and she said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 63. Why? And I said, do I look old for my age? She said, no, you look really good. She said, but that's amazing that you had 3 women in one day at 63. And it's like, well, I do things that, make that possible. So it is one of the things that you do have to do is when you come to Thailand, things work for a reason, and you have to do your research, figure out what works for you and your body. And you have to, there has to be desire, there has to be passion in your soul to be successful. And don't worry, this is one time you can not worry. All of your life you've had to worry about every woman you've ever been with, pleasing her, doing what, making her happy, making sure that she feels satisfied, all these things. Okay, here you are. If you're dating a woman, then yes, you do. Same as West. What you do, you treat the woman. You want to make sure she's happy. You want to make sure that she's pleased with what you do. But if you are, with a bar girl and you're paying her, don't worry about it. If things take longer than you think they should, who cares? If it takes like 2.5 minutes and you're done, who cares? You're paying the person. Don't sweat it. And that's the thing, especially as we get older, we should have the wisdom to just let ourselves off the hook. We've spent our whole lives trying to impress women, whether it's ladies we've dated or wives, whatever. And, there comes a time where it's like, okay, that's great if you do. And things work out well for both of you. Excellent. That's what everyone hopes for. But if it doesn't, don't sweat it. You okay? You're in Pattaya, you're on vacation, you're making up for all the years that you didn't have these kinds of relations. And it always, the whole thing of being married, and, I think women need to understand, okay, there are faster and easier ways to kill their husbands rather than just cutting them off and having them live for 20 years together. Um, it's a joke. It's a joke. There are many couples that have a great sex life late into their marriage. So, anyways, that's the moral of the story today is when you go, have fun. Allow yourself to feel the way you felt when you were young. Don't worry about if the woman is, 30 years old and you're 70 years old. They don't care. Thai women, even the women you date, really are amazing in that they can overlook so many things. And a lot of people that, oh yeah, they just love your wallet. And in some cases, that's true. And in some cases, if you're dating a bar girl, you're foolish to think she doesn't love your wallet. That's why she's there, is to make money. But when you're dating someone, there are a lot of women who just they're the things that impress them and make them feel um, romantic and want intimacy are not the same things as in the West. In the West, everyone looks for good looking, perfect bodies, perfect faces, perfect hair, all these things to be perfect. To, it's kind of like a TV screen to where it gets them aroused that way. Um, Thailand women tend to be the things that love, for lack of a better word, family, um, the warm feeling they have when they're around you. Those things are what make a Thai woman feel like intimacy. And so learn that if you are dating. And if you're not dating, then it doesn't matter. So if you like what you've seen today or in any of the other videos, subscribe. It lets me know that you appreciate what I'm doing because I'm enjoying doing these videos. And you can also, if you enjoyed today's topic, give it a thumbs up. Hope I helped you. As I said too, before you take anything, any kind of supplement, any kind of erectile dysfunction medicine, anything else, check with your doctor. Make sure it's okay. And even check, you may mention to your doctor that you are coming to Thailand and that you may be sexually active. Um, the other thing I didn't talk about, which I should because it is related, get condoms in the US before you go to Thailand. First of all, our condoms here are manufactured to the best levels. Secondly, they're the correct size. This last trip I ran out of condoms. I had a big box. I went through them all, and I bought some at um, the grocery store. And I'm bad. Okay, I'm a long time, but in the U.S. I know the women before I have any relations with them, so I don't always wear a condom, although I should, and that's my mistake. But I'm getting better about it. So, anyways, but I bought these condoms without knowing. It's like one condom is like another condom, whatever, and it's like the lady who is I'd seen her several times, and she explained that in Thailand most of the condoms you have to get the biggest size because most of them are very small. And it's like, that makes sense. But on the good news about that is when you go to Thailand, you feel really good and it does your ego really well because every woman tells you how big you are in comparison to the local men that they've had before in most cases. So, anyways, like and subscribe. Have a good day and good luck in your travels to Thailand.